Zhang Yi explained that as long as they were obedient and helpful, he would treat them well. Shinsen felt awkward and asked about other tasks, which surprised Zhang Yi. He emphasized that Shinsen should focus as a digital expert. Despite finding Shinsen adorable, he already had Yokier and Yangmi. Shinsen began to wonder if she was rejected because of her limitations. The conversation was interrupted when Yokier and Yangmi arrived. Yangmi seemed very worried about her sister. Shinsen reassured her, saying she was fine and only wanted to meet because she knew Yangmi was with Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi observed that the two sisters each had their own charm, beauty and intelligence that drew attention. Yangmi was curious about how Shinsen knew about their location and introduced Ken, her best friend and a mechanic expert at school, whom Zhang Yi found quite endearing. The head of the house instructed Yangmi to prepare dinner and rooms for the two girls. During dinner, they enjoyed a delicious meal, a luxury they hadn't had for months. Karen mentioned her need for proper materials and machines to create weapons and ammunition. Zhang Yi, feeling satisfied, took Karen to see some mechanical equipment he had stored. Karen listed the necessary machines and materials. Zhang Yi offered to help gather them, but Karen was confident she could organize it herself. As a test, Zhang Yi took out Teacher Lien's sword from his dimensional storage and handed it to Karen for evaluation. Karen was highly impressed with the sword's quality and felt honored to hold it. She explained that the sword was an invaluable ancient artifact that couldn't be replicated, sharp enough to cut diamonds. It had been given to Miss Lien as a reward for her services, and she valued it more than her own life. This information gave Zhang Yi a new idea. After that, they continued their meal and discussed Karen's potential contributions to the house. Once they finished, they watched the news. Reports revealed that the cold disaster had no end in sight, with most of the global population already gone. Anarchy was spreading, laws were no longer effective, and power determined survival. Armed groups and military organizations began seizing territories and resources. Shinsen felt a pang of jealousy watching Zhang Yi's closeness with the other girls, while Zhang Yi realized that armed groups and military organizations would become significant threats in the battle for resources. Shinsen agreed, saying that a large-scale war over territory and resources was inevitable, and their shelter could become a target. Zhang Yi brought her to the control room with full internet access. In a short time, Shinsen mastered the system and discovered outdated security gaps. She explained that although the system was once advanced, it could now be exploited by hackers. Several hacking attempts had already occurred in recent weeks, and in a month, the attackers could take over the system. Shinsen quickly sealed all the gaps and began counter-hacking the attackers' network without leaving a trace. Zhang Yi felt fortunate to have brought her along. However, the situation changed when Yokier informed them that a giant cat monster had arrived at their door. Zhang Yi asked Shinsen for a solution, suspecting that the cat wanted to protect her. He decided to tame the creature. Zhang Yi led Shinsen out of the security room, calmed the girls, and approached the window where the cat was waiting. The cat seemed calm but threatening when Zhang Yi got too close. Zhang Yi tried to bribe the cat with food from his dimensional storage, but it refused. Shinsen reminded him that stray cats are highly suspicious of strangers. Finally, Zhang Yi proposed a deal: if the cat promised not to attack the village and only ate non-human food, he would provide it with sustenance. The cat agreed, and Zhang Yi returned home with Shinsen. When they arrived, Yokier was shocked to see the giant cat had suddenly shrunk. The creature wasn't mutated but had the ability to enlarge and shrink at will. This explained how it managed to devour several students. It would shrink while eating. The cat's ability to disappear and remain undetected, even by Teacher Lien, was also linked to this power. Zhang Yi noticed that the cat was wounded from the previous battle, but it seemed indifferent. He planned to provide the cat with medicine to gain its trust. Karen felt like she was dreaming because just that morning, they had been starving and freezing, while tonight, they were in a warm place with enough food and sleeping comfortably. Shinsen felt safe by Zhang Yi's side, who was so clever and resourceful. They discussed ways to strengthen their weapons and defenses. Meanwhile, back at the campus, a wealthy student managed to contact his father, but most of the others couldn't reach their families, possibly because they didn't survive. At least the monster cat hadn't attacked again. The young man pleaded with his father to save everyone. After several hours of waiting, a sound came from outside. They went out and saw a sleigh pulled by wolves with a group of soldiers dressed in cold-weather gear. The teachers recognized them as trained soldiers. The boy asked if they had come on his father's orders. One of the soldiers removed his helmet, revealing himself as the boy's father. The boy was shocked to see his father looking thin and exhausted. He hugged his father, asking why he had taken so long to save him. Before his father could explain, the soldiers asked about the school's supplies since they knew a large stock was stored there. The boy told them about the frozen market at the school and mentioned the giant monster lurking nearby. The soldiers didn't see it as a problem and prepared to take down the monster. However, the boy left the responsibility to his teacher, who agreed to lead them to the supplies. The soldiers headed to the stockroom, but the teacher warned them about the monster, reminding them that it had already killed several students. The soldiers remained confident, prepared to face any threat. Along the way, the teacher also reminded everyone that the base was over 10 kilometers away. The soldiers warned that anyone who complained would be punished as a deserter. The students were instructed to stay silent and keep up with the group. The teacher handed out chocolate to those who were exhausted, and they continued their journey until nightfall. Finally, they arrived at the base at the foot of the mountain and were ordered to go inside, descending a series of stairs. The base was large and advanced but empty. The teacher tried to calm the anxious students. Not long after, a group of soldiers in protective suits arrived and sprayed them with gas. A heavy-set woman introduced herself and explained that this was a disinfection procedure to prevent disease from spreading in the base. After a series of tests, including disinfection, blood tests, and stool tests, the students were given delicious white yogurt to eat. They enjoyed it for a while. Later, the woman who led the procedure asked about the boy with them. His father, looking fearful, confirmed that it was his son. The woman ordered her team to take the students to a designated area but told the boy to go somewhere else. The boy told his friends that he was different and important because of his father, who warned him not to break the rules. He was taken to the place specified by the woman. Upon arriving there, the large woman asked the boy to take a bath. He complied since it had been 3 months since he last bathed. After exiting the bathroom with only a towel, he was shocked to see the large woman standing in front of him. She grabbed his hand and threw him onto the bed. After some time, the students were taken to another area to put on work uniforms. They were placed in a section with large bicycles and giant gears that needed to be pedaled to generate energy. They were told that working all day was mandatory to receive food and a warm bed. This labor was crucial for providing energy to the entire base. If they did not work, they would not receive food. The students felt pressured and couldn't believe it. Those who were once considered important now had to work hard. They panicked and pleaded with their teacher to save them, but the leader of the place coldly told them they could cry while working. The teacher tried to calm them, reminding them to follow orders for the sake of protection and sustenance. In a room designated for the luckier students, one of them lay broken after completing his tasks. His father waited for him, asking if everything went well. The large woman in charge remarked that the boy was diligent like his father. She hoped the boy would continue to work hard for the prosperity of the base. The boy lay down, struggling to process what had just happened. His father checked on him, ensuring nothing was broken. The boy, now crying, asked why his father hadn't told him earlier about the harsh realities of survival. He also wanted to know about his father's work. His father explained that everything had changed since the snowstorm. Mutant humans with powers emerged, and the hierarchy shifted. Those with abilities became more significant, while those with lower political standings lost their place to survive. His father had to work hard, and now his son had to replace him and work diligently alongside the large woman who had just left. After a day of pedaling the massive bikes, the students returned to their dorms, their bodies sore. They asked Teacher Lien if they would have to work like that every day. The teacher responded that they must work and not complain because this was the way of life in the new world. However, they were not ordinary people, they were elites. The students wondered why someone as important as they were should also work and suffer. They hoped Teacher Lien could find a way for them to avoid this labor. The most influential boy among them arrived with a dejected expression. When they asked if he could change the situation, he replied that things here were not as he had imagined. All they could do now was follow orders since everyone had their assigned roles. The students held a meeting, and one of them explained that they could only rely on themselves. Teacher Lien realized that his position as a teacher now meant nothing, but as an experienced fighter and a strong mutant, he still had value. The boy explained that the base was managed by Qin Yuan, the most powerful person there. The base had 4 layers, the first for the leaders and their families living in comfort, the second for technicians and scientists, the third for mutants with abilities, and the fourth for laborers who generated energy and lived in misery. The frightened boy explained that he had no intention of rebelling. The overseers from the third layer maintained strict security and would destroy anyone who resisted. One of the students angrily blamed the boy for the unfulfilled promises. The boy remarked that they would have been better off staying at the campus, dying from the giant cat or starvation. He then said that the only way to improve their situation was with Teacher Lien's help. The students pleaded with Teacher Lien to help change their fate. After witnessing the injustice, Teacher Lien felt exhausted and decided to rest to be ready to work again the next day. The next morning, everyone woke up and lined up for work. An overseer announced that it was the day to thank their saviors. Periodically, all personnel in the base gathered to pay homage to their protectors, those guarding against the ongoing chaos outside. The students were given thin porridge. Teacher Lien left while the students wondered if this was part of his plan to improve their situation. The secretary signaled the students to return to their place. Teacher Lien was respectfully greeted, and then they walked toward the office of the highest leader, who welcomed him warmly and invited him to sit. The leader explained his plans for the base while Teacher Lien listened attentively. The secretary then escorted Teacher Lien to his new residence on the second level, where he was promoted to a military officer due to his awakened power. Meanwhile, the most luxurious residence belonged to Zhang Yi. After much effort, he finally gained the cat's trust by offering the best food. The cat, which initially ignored him, began to approach and enter the house. It marked its territory by tearing up the expensive sofa, but Zhang Yi accepted it without complaint. Ear felt relieved that the cat was not a woman. After everything was settled, the cat slept on a plush chair. Zhang Yi attempted to pet it but was rejected. Zhang Yi managed to earn the cat's trust after persistent efforts, often bathing with it. Meanwhile, Yokier and the other girls began to approach him more frequently. Shin, with his hacking skills, discovered a conversation attempting to breach the house's security system. He easily tracked it without being noticed, realizing the conversation originated from the base where his teacher was stationed. They were planning to attack the residence. Confident, the protagonist decided to eliminate his enemies without fear. He then approached Karen, who informed him that she had made a sound suppressor for Zhang Yi's rifle. With the addition, the previously noisy rifle could now be used more quietly. Zhang Yi sat beside the girl, placed his hand on her shoulder, and asked about creating grenades and landmines. The girl was slightly confused, thinking Zhang Yi underestimated her abilities, though making such weapons was not difficult. She explained that crafting weapons like those had been done since medieval times, and she could do it with her eyes closed if the right materials were available. Zhang Yi explained that enemies with mutant abilities could attack their base. Although the girl was worried, Zhang Yi assured her that he could protect everyone. He expressed a special sentiment toward the girl, considering her like a sister who needed protection. Those words saddened the girl, realizing there was no chance for anything more. Zhang Yi stroked her face and promised to provide a safe life as long as she worked for him. The girl regained her enthusiasm and was ready to do anything for him without limits. Zhang Yi left her to work, with plans to ensure her absolute loyalty through her best efforts. He desperately needed weapons to face new threats. Zhang Yi contacted Chun and Pominyu to inform them about the threat from the major base. He warned them not to reveal their special abilities. Zhang Yi also emphasized that Chunlei was more dangerous due to its position between Zhang Yi's base and the mysterious military base, likely the first target. He asserted that if Chun was in danger, they should immediately respond because someone with Chun's extraordinary abilities could not be allowed to die. Meanwhile, Chun believed that the farming village and its people would not be attacked, as there was no reason for any organization to target them. At the western mountain base, 27 kilometers from Chun's village, a man and a girl prepared to investigate Zhang Yi's base. The girl speculated that the snowstorm would last a long time, possibly as God's final act to erase the world's sins. They continued their journey on a sled, avoiding the frozen river near Zhang Yi's base. Upon arriving at Chun's village, the two were impressed by the large ice castle there. They introduced themselves as government envoys, and the village leader welcomed them, instructing the villagers to treat them well despite some villagers' doubts. The leader convinced them that an alliance with the military was more crucial than their food supplies. He hosted a feast and explained the ice castle and the village's food production, crediting his leadership. One skeptical villager believed the leader was merely continuing the previous leader's efforts. When asked about food production, the village leader initially claimed they had maintained their crops despite the snowstorm. However, he later adjusted his statement, mentioning a decline in food production. The village leader discussed the ice structure he ordered, claiming it could benefit the government if they became allies. He ordered more food to further convince the woman, who began to suspect the village leader was hiding something that could be useful to the mountain base. When asked about when the snowstorm would end, the woman mentioned that the government had a significant plan to address the weather issue. The village leader and his followers were intrigued, but the woman also asked if they had noticed any changes among the villagers. The leader pretended to be unaware, considering whether to reveal Chun's identity as a mutant, though he requested the woman's phone number to report information if necessary. The village leader, fearing exposure, hesitated to disclose his knowledge of Zhang Yi, a resident across the river. The mention of Zhang Yi piqued the woman's interest, as he was the target of their investigation. The leader recounted how Zhang Yi had wiped out half of the village after they tried to steal food from him. All who had seen his face or knew his powers perished in the attack. However, the woman gained no further information about Zhang Yi's appearance or abilities. After their conversation, the two decided to leave the village and report back to their base. The woman planned to claim that they had discovered a village with ample food, beneficial for the future. Although the man questioned the lies they planned to tell, the woman remained unfazed, focused on securing special treatment and the necessary information. The pair arrived at Zhang Yi's residence, a large, well-stocked, and warmly heated house. They were convinced that Zhang Yi was an extraordinary figure, possibly involved in the supply thefts they had heard about. The man, with his leaping ability, carried the woman over the property's secure perimeter. The house was luxurious and well-guarded, but the woman managed to sneak inside undetected. As they explored the house, a sense of unease set in. The comfort and safety of the home were far beyond what they experienced at the mountain base. Feeling unsafe, the woman left a knife as a marker and suggested they return with reinforcements. She realized that Zhang Yi was far more prepared. His home was not just secure but luxurious, better even than the elite facilities of the mountain base. Zhang Yi surely possessed unknown powers and resources. Any confrontation could lead to fatal consequences. They quickly left, but in Zhang Yi's room, his cat awoke, sensing something amiss. Zhang Yi woke up, grabbed his weapon, and checked his phone. There were no security alerts. However, the cat's persistent nudging led him to open the door, where he found the knife left behind. Realizing the threat, Zhang Yi checked the surveillance footage and discovered that someone with special abilities had infiltrated his supposedly impenetrable home. Furious, he reviewed the footage and saw the two escaping on a snowmobile, heading toward their base to report crucial information. The woman speculated that Zhang Yi had stolen from the Walmart supply caches and possibly possessed the ability to hide or access items through dimensional means. If true, this would be one of the most potent abilities known. They anticipated a significant reward, but their excitement abruptly ended when a projectile pierced the woman's head. The surviving soldier panicked but quickly regained control, wary of the large, furry creature rolling toward them. The man shielded his companion, narrowly avoiding an attack. Chaos unfolded as the cat, an unusual and powerful creature, tore through the intruders. The soldier's last sight was a blur of fur and claws before collapsing in the snow. The intruders' gear revealed they were part of the Shizhen organization, whose underground base lay 27 kilometers away. Divided into 4 tiers, it housed military forces and individuals with special abilities. Zhang Yi's appreciation for Shizen's talents deepened. Later, Ear arrived with critical findings from the examination room. She explained that the woman's brain cells were distinct from typical humans, while the man possessed artificial muscle mutations in his legs. Knowing this, Zhang Yi grew curious about the power he had absorbed from them. Heading to the underground training facility, Zhang Yi tested his newfound abilities. His arrows now surpassed the speed of sound, thrilling him with the growth of his power. Meanwhile, at the military base, agents investigating Zhang Yi's territory made an urgent call for reinforcements. The military leader requested additional forces but was denied and instructed to seek authorization from the base commander. The secretary blocked the door, citing the commander's involvement in important matters. After a meeting with a group of admiring young women, the commander finally heard the soldiers' report. He agreed to dispatch lower-ranking troops, considering the situation insignificant. As the reinforcements prepared to leave, Teacher Lien noticed her students on the ground floor and inquired about their presence. 2 mischievous girls claimed to have special abilities and shared their encounters with the commander. Disappointed, Teacher Lien realized her students had become aware of their disgraceful situation. One of the girls confessed they had to return to the second-tier dormitory after serving the commander. Before they left, Teacher Lien asked about the other missing students. The girls revealed that many had been separated when Teacher Lien was absent and had never returned. One student tearfully admitted she believed her friends might already be dead, realizing their survival efforts might be in vain. This confession left Teacher Lien shocked and suspicious that there were darker secrets concealed within the base. Back on the 4th level, Teacher Lien met a student named SWA, who showed her the location of the missing students. Down there, she saw scientists carrying large bags, which the student claimed contained the failed experiment victims. The student spoke up because his friends had started disappearing, despite his father's orders to stay silent. Teacher Lien acted discreetly, incapacitating a scientist and disguising herself in his specialized attire. This disguise allowed her to enter a restricted area, where she witnessed human bodies used in energy experiments and discarded like trash. The bodies were ground into a white paste. The scientists casually discussed the flavor of the next meal on the 4th level, referring to the paste as a delicious and nutritious yogurt. They ate it without guilt, unaware of its true origin. Teacher Lien felt nauseated, realizing that the food she had been consuming was made from humans, specifically, the students. This revelation shattered her perception of the place, which she now saw as a hell of injustice, especially for the weak. She resolved to find a way to save her students and escape, but she was uncertain where to go, knowing that outside the base, they could die from the cold and starvation. Meanwhile, the reinforcements sent as backup arrived in front of Zhang Yi's house. One of the soldiers fell into a trap, his body brutally torn apart in the snow. The enraged captain was convinced the culprit was someone within the base. Explosions and gunfire alerted Zhang Yi that the attack had begun. He quickly activated a new protective force field created by Karen, satisfied with its effectiveness, realizing that new enemies had arrived. The soldiers searched for and deactivated the traps hidden in the snow, a tactic also used by Chun's village. Zhang Yi activated remote explosives, causing more soldiers to fall. The furious captain was informed that they were facing an unknown and formidable threat. With more casualties piling up from the traps, the soldiers suggested calling for additional reinforcements. However, the captain refused, choosing to press on despite the risks.